guys ready? Timer? Negative team? Yes. Got a lot to go through, so let's jump right into it. Counterplan. We're going to first look at the argument of topicality. Now, the negative team gave 6 arguments as to why they think topical counterplans are good. I have one response. Doing our job. Doing our job. The resolution says the affirmative team has to uphold the resolution, and if the resolution is upheld, they win. That means if the negative team upholds the resolution, then the affirmative team wins the debate round. The only burden is to uphold the resolution. If the resolution is upheld, then the ballot goes to the affirmative team, and that's actually what the STOA rule says. It says the resolution is upheld, then the affirmative team has done their job, and then win the debate round. If the negative team does our job for us, that's great. Either way, the affirmative team wins the debate round. Now let's go to the counterplan. Disadvantage number 1 of lives lost. The affirmative team, first of all, said that they increase the capital of corporations, so they'll be able to do this. I have one response. Economically unfeasible. Economically unfeasible. My evidence that my partner has specifically said that without the orphan drug tax credit, it's economically unfeasible for a corporation to do investment in orphan drugs. This means that after the negative team's counterplan is passed, U.S. corporations will not have an incentive to develop these drugs, given regardless of how much cash they have, it's not going to be enough in that investment. That investment in a vacuum will not produce them a profit. They're going to lose money on making orphan drugs without the tax credit. This predictably leads to the fact that corporations are not going to make the orphan drugs if they don't get the incentive that the tax credit provides. This means that thousands of jobs are lost every single year if you vote for the negative team. This single disadvantage wins the debate round for the affirmative team. If the affirmative team can solidify the link on this disadvantage, then the affirmative ballot is merited. The negative team secondly said that it's inefficient. Well, we as the affirmative team believe that thousands of lives outweigh a little inefficiency in the tax code. We also believe that that's a net gain for the corporations, but we'll get to that in a moment. The second counterplan disadvantage was that of the deficit increase. They first read a piece of evidence citing a study from the Institute for Research in Economics and Taxation talking about how it increased revenue by $33 billion. 2 responses. First, short-term increase. Short-term increase. The negative team evidence never said it would happen immediately, and it would be rather impossible to gain all the revenue immediately. So at least in the short term, the negative plan will increase the deficit. Thus, because they increase the deficit, they're not going to get the economic growth that they are wanting to claim to decrease the deficit in the long run. Because they increase the deficit in the short term at least, then they're not going to get the economic growth to reduce in the long term. But my second response is flawed study. Flawed study. IRET, which is the source that they cited, has been proven to have flawed economic studies. The Citizens for Tax Justice, a nonprofit research and advocacy think tank, said, quote, "The Institute for Research on Economic Taxation is at it again. If you ever wonder where the Wall Street Journal's editorial board gets most of its half-baked ideas about economics and taxes, the IRET is your answer. There are problems with the IRET's claims. In some places, they are just factually wrong. IRET either talks about tax policy no one has proposed or retreats into a theoretical and fantastical world," unquote. So we see here the study by the negative team is actually from an economic model that has been proven to be flawed in the past. Now, with revenue in mind, we're going to jump quickly to the negative team's argument that we didn't specify how much revenue we get. We actually did specify $90 billion a year. So we actually get a lot more revenue than the negative team is trying to claim that they're going to get. In the one ICI specifically said that given we reduce the profit shifting, we get $90 billion extra revenue per year. So actually we do get this revenue. Now let's turn to advantage 1. The negative team first of all said that they're more competitive because they abolish corporate tax. We as the affirmative team believe that increasing the deficit of the United States is not going to make the U.S. more competitive, is not going to drive economic growth, is not going to drive investment from overseas to the United States. That's only going to hurt it. Their second response was that our plan taxes all the profits, so we don't have an incentive. But the problem is that the status quo gives an incentive to produce overseas instead of domestically. I outlined that in the impact of my harm 1 of jobs lost, that the taxes make investments more profitable overseas than domestically because of the structure of the tax code. Given we change the structure of the corporate tax, we eliminate the incentive for corporations to go overseas, and thus because they can find more productive products in the United States, they're going to invest domestically instead of internationally. Now let's turn to the negative team's argument under the deficit, my invention of deficit. They first of all read their piece of evidence from the IRET. Again, this was a flawed study. Then they said that we had no numbers. Again, we did $90 billion. But then they said that empirics side with the negative team. However, you simply cannot compare a country like Estonia to a country like the United States. They are totally different economies. They have totally different situations. We have to look at what the experts say. The experts say that our plan is better than the counterplan. Now let's turn to the negative team's 2 disadvantages. First of all, they said they kind of made the argument only that the counterplan is the only thing that's going to help consumer spending. However, first of all, they didn't respond to my partner's piece of evidence that reducing it to 24% increases wages for the average family of 4 by $2,481 per year. That's what the affirmative plan offers you. Additionally, we as the affirmative team are following the same logic as the negative team, so it can definitely be applied. Now finally, the negative team's second disadvantage was that our plan keeps businesses overseas. And they said that their plan makes us competitive. However, the tax havens are not who the United States is competing with. The United States is competing with major economies around the world. Those economies have a 25% rate. Our plan clearly makes the United States competitive enough. In the end, the negative counterplan loses lives, makes the United States less competitive, hurts our economy. The plan is what's most preferred. Thank you.